What if the miracle you prayed for came not in a lab coat or luxury, but barefoot from the street? Would you believe and hope again? This is the story of a broken little girl, a grieving father, and a mysterious boy who reminded them, and us, that healing can come from anywhere. The rain hit the windshield like 1,000 tiny hammers as the black Bentley wound its way through the sleepy outskirts of Middleton, a town too small for a billionaire and too quiet for a man so used to power. But Raymond Wells didn't come here to be noticed. He came here to disappear. He parked beneath a line of crooked oak trees, cutting the engine. Silence. In the back seat, Lily, his 8-year-old daughter, stared blankly out the window. Her legs, once the engines of 1,000 games and wild backyard races, now lay motionless under a thick woolen blanket. Raymond watched her in the rearview mirror. Her once sparkling eyes had dulled since the accident. No more laughter, no more singing. Just quiet. Quiet that killed louder than any scream. 6 months. Dozens of hospitals. A team of neurologists flown in from Switzerland. One even tried stem cell therapy. Another suggested experimental spinal stimulation. All ended in the same cold shrug. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wells, the damage is permanent." Permanent. The word hit like a verdict. The world knew Raymond as the tech genius who turned code into billions, the man who built an empire before he was 40. He had yachts, jets, and stock tickers glowing green in every time zone. But none of it could fix the one thing that mattered. He reached into his coat and pulled out a silver pocket watch. It had belonged to his father, a simple clockmaker from Ohio. On the back, an engraving, "There's no greater wealth than time with those you love." Raymond shut his eyes. He had all the money in the world, and time was still slipping through his fingers like sand. Lily stirred. "Daddy," she whispered. He turned quickly. "Yes, sweetheart? Do you think I'll ever run again?" The words sliced him open. He smiled, a practiced lie. "We'll try everything, baby. We'll find a way." But his voice cracked. Just then, a voice rang out from the park ahead. A soft voice, innocent and strangely certain. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." Raymond turned sharply toward the sound. There, standing barefoot in the mud, was a boy no older than Lily. His clothes were ragged, his hands filthy, but his eyes, those eyes, held something ancient, something knowing. Raymond froze. This wasn't just another child. This was the beginning of something no science could explain. Raymond Wells had faced ruthless boardrooms, hostile takeovers, and billion-dollar lawsuits without so much as a twitch in his eye. But now, standing under a gray sky in a muddy town square, he was paralyzed. Not by fear, but by the voice of a boy who should have been invisible. "Sir, I can make your daughter walk again." The words hung in the air, strange and impossible, as if time itself had paused to listen. Raymond blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. Lily turned in her wheelchair, curiosity flickering across her tired face. The boy stepped forward. He couldn't have been more than 12. Thin as a reed, barefoot, with trousers too short and a shirt that had long lost its buttons. Mud streaked his legs. A deep scar ran from his left ear down to his collarbone. But what struck Raymond most weren't the rags or the dirt. It was the boy's calm. He wasn't begging. He wasn't desperate. He was certain. Raymond scoffed, instinctively pulling Lily's chair closer. "Who put you up to this?" he demanded. "You think this is funny?" The boy didn't flinch. "No joke, sir. I can help her, but only if you let me." Raymond's jaw tightened. "You think you're some kind of healer?" The boy hesitated, then nodded. "My name is Kavi. I was raised by my grandmother in the mountains. She was a Vaidya, a traditional healer. I learned from her before she passed. I've helped people. I don't need money. I just saw her pain." He pointed gently to Lily. "She's trapped, but she doesn't have to be." Raymond turned to walk away. This was madness, street theater at best. But Lily's small hand grabbed his wrist. "Daddy, wait," she whispered. Her voice had something he hadn't heard in months. Hope. "Let him try." Raymond looked down at her, then back at Kavi. The boy stood still, his bare feet sinking slightly into the soaked earth, his eyes locked on Raymond's. Not with arrogance, but conviction. No cameras, no audience, no scam artist in sight. Just a beggar boy offering what the world's richest man could never buy. Raymond didn't move. Couldn't. Because for the first time in 6 months, someone wasn't selling him false hope. Someone believed. And that made it terrifying. Raymond sat on a nearby bench, elbows on his knees, still trying to make sense of what he just heard. Lily watched him with wide, pleading eyes. She had barely spoken to anyone since the accident, yet now she was leaning forward, curious, engaged. All because of a barefoot boy who claimed to heal. Cubby stood silently, hands clasped behind his back, as if waiting for permission from someone far above Raymond's pay grade. "All right," Raymond finally said, voice low. "You said your name's Kavi. Tell me exactly what it is you think you can do, and why I should believe you." The boy took a breath. "My grandmother used to say, when the body speaks, most people silence it with pills. But if you listen carefully, it tells you how to heal it." His eyes never left Raymond's. "She taught me how to listen." Kavi sat cross-legged on the ground, unbothered by the cold mud soaking into his pants. His voice dropped into a rhythm, measured, calm, like he was reciting something older than any textbook. "She was a mountain healer, what they called a vaidya in our village. People walked miles to see her. Some came with pain in their joints, others with broken bones, others with nothing wrong except a sadness that made them feel empty inside." He placed his palm gently on the soil. "She said the earth gave us everything we needed. Plants for medicine, fingers for touch, breath for energy. She taught me pressure points that modern medicine ignores. She called them memory spots, places where the body remembers what it's supposed to do." Raymond stared, somewhere between skeptical and mesmerized. "And you've used these methods on others?" Kavi nodded. "A child once. She fell from a tree and lost movement in her legs. The villagers had no hospitals. My grandmother worked on her for weeks. I helped. She walks now. Not like before, but she walks." Raymond's skepticism flared. "You're telling me your hands are more powerful than $1 million surgeon?" Kavi looked at Lily, not him. "I'm telling you, I care more than they ever could." Silence. Lily smiled. Raymond wanted to laugh, to shout, to walk away. But something in Kavi's voice, in the way he didn't need to convince him, it echoed. Not science, not arrogance. Truth. And truth, as Raymond was beginning to learn, doesn't wear a lab coat. Raymond paced. He wasn't a man who made decisions on gut feelings. Every move in his life had been calculated, deliberate, backed by data and double-checked by teams of advisors. And yet here he was, standing in a muddy park, debating whether to let a barefoot boy from the street touch his daughter's spine. It was madness. But Lily was staring at him again, really staring, with those eyes that once lit up their entire home. Her tiny hand tugged at his coat sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, "please, just let him try." He looked down at her, his heart caught between logic and love. Her voice, so fragile, so hopeful, was the only thing stronger than his fear of being fooled. He nodded, slowly, reluctantly. Kavi smiled, then knelt before Lily like she was royalty. He didn't rush. He asked her name again, even though he already knew. He asked if she trusted him. She nodded without hesitation. Raymond crouched beside them, ready to yank Kavi back at the slightest sign of discomfort. But Lily was calm. In fact, she looked more relaxed than he'd seen in months. Kavi began by placing his hands lightly on Lily's knees. His touch was gentle, deliberate, almost reverent. He whispered something in a language Raymond didn't understand. Soft syllables, rhythmic and ancient. Then using his thumbs, he began to press and hold specific points along her legs and lower back. For 15 minutes, there was nothing. Just the quiet hum of the town square and the faint rustle of leaves above them. Then, it happened. Lily gasped. Her right toe twitched. Raymond blinked. Maybe he imagined it. But then, another twitch. This time her left foot. I felt something, Lily exclaimed, her voice rising. Raymond's breath caught in his throat. He dropped to her level, eyes wide. What did you feel, baby? It was like a spark, like my legs woke up. Kavi continued, silent and focused, as if the world didn't exist beyond Lily's limbs. Tears welled in Raymond's eyes. For 6 months, he'd signed blank checks for miracles. But this barefoot boy, with nothing but touch and conviction, had done what no billionaire could. He'd brought hope back into a little girl's legs and into her father's heart. Raymond barely dared to breathe. Kavi's hands moved with unwavering precision. Press, hold, release. Every movement seemed choreographed, as if he wasn't just treating Lily's legs, but conducting a silent symphony with her nervous system. The boy's eyes stayed closed now, lips murmuring that same melodic chant. Lily sat perfectly still, her brows furrowed in concentration. Then, without warning, her foot jerked again, this time with intention. Raymond's heart nearly burst. Did you see that? He whispered aloud, though no one was listening. Lily gasped. Daddy, I moved it. I really did. Kavi gently held her ankle and placed her foot flat on the grass. Try again, he said softly. Tell your toes to wake up. She focused, biting her lip. A tremble ran through her thigh. Her leg lifted, just slightly, then collapsed. Still it moved. Raymond dropped to his knees, his vision blurring. Oh my God! Tears streamed freely now, cutting tracks down his cheeks. He had watched this little girl cry herself to sleep, watched her avoid mirrors, watched her hide her drawings of ballerinas because they reminded her of what she had lost. But now, right in front of him, she was coming back. Kavi wiped his forehead, streaked with sweat and dirt. It's not finished, he said. This is just the door unlocking. The rest will take time. Days, maybe weeks. Raymond nodded, stunned. How did you know? How did you see something the doctors missed? Kavi finally looked at him, not with pride, but with quiet certainty. They looked with machines. I looked with heart. A small crowd had begun to form at the edge of the park. Parents, shopkeepers, joggers. Someone had recorded it on their phone. Murmurs rippled through the onlookers like wind through grass. Is that Lily Wells? Someone whispered. Is she? Raymond stood, shielding his daughter from the noise. But Lily wasn't afraid. She waved at the growing crowd with a grin that hadn't touched her face in nearly a year. The crowd clapped, unsure why, but knowing they'd witnessed something extraordinary. Kavi stepped back, brushing the mud from his knees. She's not healed yet, he said, but now she believes she can be. Raymond looked at him like he was staring at a miracle, because that's exactly what he was. By morning, the video had already gone viral. The blurry phone footage of a barefoot boy helping a paralyzed girl twitch her toes had spread like wildfire. Headlines flooded social media. Mystery boy heals millionaire's daughter? Modern miracle or street scam? Who is the child who defied medical science? But inside Raymond Wells' gated estate, none of that mattered. Lily had asked for Kavi by name the moment she woke up. Raymond's team, which once booked neurosurgeons and private jets on a whim, now scrambled to find a 12-year-old boy with no address, no ID, and no phone number. But Kavi was already at the gate, barefoot, wearing the same tattered clothes, as if he had simply walked through the morning fog. Raymond met him at the front steps. I don't know what you are, he said, voice low, but my daughter smiled in her sleep last night, and I haven't seen that in 6 months. So if you're willing, I want you to stay. Kavi blinked, unsure how to answer. I don't need money, he said again. I know, Raymond replied, but you deserve safety, a bed, food, anything you need to help her. Kavi nodded, accepting, not the offer, but the responsibility. For the next 5 days, he visited Lily morning and evening. His sessions were a strange fusion of touch, breathwork, pressure point therapy, and chants in a forgotten tongue. Lily called them whispers to her legs. By the 3rd day, she could raise both legs off the bed for 3 full seconds. By the 5th, she stood. Raymond was speechless. He watched her cling to the railing in the garden, her knees wobbling, eyes wide with wonder. She wasn't sprinting, but she wasn't sitting either. She was rising. It wasn't just Lily who was healing. Raymond was changing too. The man who once obsessed over control and certainty now found himself humbled by a child healer with no possessions, no pedigree, just purpose. But as Kavi's story spread, questions began to swirl. Journalists camped outside the gates. Reporters offered six-figure deals just for an interview. And somewhere in the noise, Raymond received a message from a hospital in Zurich. It read, "Kavi isn't just a boy. We've seen him before. And what he's doing is not supposed to be possible." The message haunted Raymond all night. "We've seen him before. What he's doing is not supposed to be possible." He paced his study, phone in hand, heart pounding. On his desk sat an untouched glass of bourbon and a stack of unopened mail. None of it mattered now. Raymond had built empires by sniffing out secrets, following whispers in the wind, and making them scream on the front page. And this boy, this barefoot healer with ancient hands, was a headline wrapped in mystery. He called the Zurich hospital at midnight. An elderly Swiss doctor answered, Dr. Klaus Meyer. He spoke in hushed tones as though the walls had ears. "Yes, Mr. Wells," the doctor said. "We saw Kavi 5 years ago, in a refugee camp near the Nepal border. He was only a child, barely 7, but people said he healed a soldier with a shattered spine. No medicine, no machine, just his hands." Raymond's grip on the phone tightened. "The UN dismissed it as myth," Dr. Meyer continued. "But I saw the man walk. I ran the scans. The injury didn't heal. It reversed. That's not science. That's something else." "Where is Kavi from?" Raymond asked. "No one knows," the doctor said. "He just appeared. One day in the village. No parents, no records, only stories." Raymond ended the call and turned to the window. Outside in the moonlit garden, Kavi sat beside Lily. She laughed, really laughed. Her face lit like it hadn't been since the accident. Her legs kicked gently under a blanket. She was regaining strength faster than any doctor predicted. But something gnawed at Raymond's gut. Why was no one celebrating this miracle? Why were some terrified? The next morning, 2 black sedans pulled up outside the estate. Not press, not fans, government. 2 men in dark suits stepped out. No name tags, no smiles. The taller one introduced himself only as Agent Miller. "We need to speak with the boy," he said flatly. "Now!" Raymond blocked the gate. "You're not taking him." Miller's voice was cold. "Mr. Wells, with respect, you don't know what he is, and you don't know what you've exposed." Behind him, Kavi stood calmly on the front steps, watching the men in suits, not with fear, but with something far more dangerous: recognition. The tension was thick. Raymond stood between Kavi and the agents like a lion guarding its cub. But Kavi gently stepped forward, barefoot on the gravel, unbothered by the sharp stones or the threat in the air. "You don't have to do this," Raymond whispered urgently. "I can protect you. I'll call the media. I'll bring the world down on them." Kavi shook his head. "You've already done enough." The taller Agent Miller narrowed his eyes. "You've crossed into something far beyond philanthropy, Mr. Wells. This boy, he's not supposed to be found. Not again." Raymond glared. "He's a child." "No," Miller replied. "He's something else. There are people who believe he was part of an unauthorized medical experiment, a prototype subject from a lost project decades ago. Disappeared without a trace. Until now." Raymond turned to Kavi. "Is it true?" Kavi looked up at him with sad, ancient eyes. "I don't know where I came from. I only know what I can do." Lily watched from the window, hand pressed to the glass. "She needs you," Raymond said. Kavi smiled faintly. "She needed to believe, and now she does. My gift is not forever. It's only meant to awaken the healing already inside." He pulled something from the cloth satchel he always carried. A smooth, round stone etched with intricate patterns. He pressed it into Raymond's hand. "She'll need this," Kavi said, "when the pain returns or the doubt." Raymond stared at the stone, mystified. "What is it?" "A reminder that even in the darkest places, healing begins with belief." Then he turned to Lily and waved. She pressed her palm to the window in return. And just like that, Kavi stepped into the back of the black sedan. No fight, no fuss. As the car disappeared down the winding drive, Raymond stood frozen, holding the stone like it was the last piece of something sacred. Days passed. Weeks. Lily kept walking, first with crutches, then without. Her strength returned, her laughter came easier, and the fear that once ruled her eyes disappeared altogether. Doctors couldn't explain it. The media moved on. But in Raymond's private office, on a shelf above his desk, sat a smooth stone, and every time he looked at it, he remembered the barefoot boy who asked for nothing, yet gave them everything. A boy who vanished again, like a miracle, just when the world needed one. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't come from science or money. They come from faith, compassion, and the courage to believe in the impossible. And when we open our hearts, even the smallest hands can change a life forever. Because true healing begins where hope refuses to quit.